BPR Championship 1995. This is a series of endurance sports car races, and the most famous, the 24 hours race at Le Mans. Only production sports cars can enter. Here, we'll only see the cream of sports cars, the Ferraris, the Porsches, all modified for these tough races. And this year has seen a new car, the McLaren GTR, the racing version of the McLaren F1, the fastest and most expensive sports car in the world. And the GTR is cleaning up. At every race so far, the GTR car has come first. This is the story of the F1 road car, from its development as a supercar for the super rich to its appearance as the racing GTR on the endurance circuit. In the 1960s, New Zealander Bruce McLaren was a star on the racing circuit. Killed at Goodwood during a practice run, his name has lived on through the internationally renowned British team. Until their disastrous 1995 Formula One season, they have been the most successful Grand Prix team in the world. But Bruce McLaren left another legacy. He wanted to produce a road car with the guts of a racing machine. In 1989, McLaren put Gordon Murray, their Formula One designer, to the task to make a street-legal sports car with racing technology, never before seen off the track. In 2.5 years, the McLaren F1 supercar was built.
That's main beat.
All my life I can remember, I'd wanted to do a road car and a sports car, and to be given the opportunity by the group to do one for McLaren at this level was like fairy tale stuff, really. I'd always had in my mind a sports car, a certain layout, that is, with the central driving position and the two seats on one side. I think that was going back to college days when I first penciled that one. We spent a long time on deciding how we could achieve the access to the central seat. And in the end, we had to come up with these dihedral doors that actually remove part of the floor in the opening process. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but once you've done it about 6 times, it's getting in and out, that is, it's actually turned out okay. And it's part of the character of the car. I think people, with sports cars, people will stand a certain amount of acrobatics to get in and out.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a bit clumsy looking. Yeah, it is a bit. No, it's a one leg at a time job getting out.
The shape of the exterior developed simultaneously with the interior. Scale models were carved in clay and tested for aerodynamic efficiency on the Formula One rolling road wind tunnel. Fluorescent paint was used to mark how the air flowed across the chassis.
We did about 1,100 wind tunnel tests in the Formula One tunnel to produce this car. You're looking for enough downforce to cancel the natural lift. All cars produce lift, basically, and when you're talking about a car that can exceed 200 miles an hour, that lift figure becomes quite critical. So you have to produce downforce to counter that lift to make the car stable.
To maximize the power-to-weight ratio of the car, Murray needed a super light body. He used Formula One's carbon fiber. At 36 pounds per square meter, it's expensive, but it's 5 times the strength of steel. Murray's designs, like this driving section, were broken down into cubes to calculate how many layers of carbon each area needed to cope with the stresses of road conditions.
Unlike a metal where you start with a constant thickness material, unless you do a lot of machining work, you're pretty much stuck with that thickness all the way through the panel that you're making. With composite materials, what you have got is a situation where you have layers of material that you can put down where you need them, in the direction you need them, and where you don't need them, you don't put them. The objective for optimization of design is actually to get that to one color. That says that in that particular loading situation, the shear stress across that structure is constant.
Carbon fiber is at the cutting edge of engineering design But ironically, the car must be constructed entirely by hand. 5,000 chassis sections are moulded on the factory floor from Paul Martin's plans. The loose weave components are then baked hard in a high-pressure oven. In here is the roof section, vacuum-packed in heavy-duty plastic. After 3 hours at a top temperature of 121 degrees centigrade and a pressure of 75 pounds per square inch, the carbon fiber of the roof has gelled solid. Carbon fiber can be laid down to maximize strength or give. In head-on collisions, the nose cone fibers fracture gradually, absorbing the energy of the impact. This is the only car to have been driven away from the statutory 35 miles per hour crash test. But the F1 is built for speed. With its bespoke BMW engine, the F1 peaks at 231 miles per hour.
We decided really that the car should be at a new level, at a higher level of technology, finish and performance, and that it should be above all a driver's car. I was determined the car wouldn't have things like power steering, power brakes, ABS, all the things that detract or anesthetize the driver, if you like, from the actual feedback. It means going on a space ride. I'll never get used to, I'm sure, banging the throttle open. It's just neck-snapping stuff.
Ready, right now, bang! There you are, 7,400 revs in third, 7.4 in fourth, 7.4 in fifth, 150 miles an hour, brake down heavily, into fourth, into third, tight corner here at the end of Hanger Straight, car sliding a bit, power on hard, here we go out again. Back. This engine really is something special. It gives 627 horsepower at 7,400 revs. It has over 600 Newton meters of torque between, I think, 4,000 and 7,000 revs, and it has over 80% of its maximum torque at a lowly 1,500 revs. That basically, in layman's terms, means that the car pulls like you wouldn't believe from very low revs, gives tremendous flexibility and drivability. So it means that the car is very docile if you want to drive around in normal fashion. But when you do press the accelerator, the performance is just utterly awesome.
The F1 accelerates from 0 to 100 miles per hour in 6.3 seconds. Over 150, it out-accelerates most Formula One cars.
Because the car, above all, had to be a driver's car. And to get the throttle response and the control and balance of the car in fast cornering on the throttle, you need a normally aspirated engine. Turbocharged engines give you too much lag, not enough control over the balance of the car, the balance of the chassis, when you're driving the car fast.
This we're rather proud of. It's rather nice, and it's been produced for us by a French tool company, Facon, and it's the world's first titanium toolkit. Now these are like jewels, and they're so light, they're like a feather. Nobody's ever made tools out of titanium before. We hope, of course, that the owner never needs them with a car, but it really is rather nice to have them. Here is all the electrics of the car, all the fuses and so on, and the battery. But up here is something which is very, very unusual indeed. It's the first car in the world to have a telephone modem link. Now, we have a little modem link which plugs into there and can download from the engine management system all the information wherever the car is in the world back to our computer here at base. So if for any reason we have a small fault or problem in the electrical system or the engine itself, which is very unlikely, but if it does happen, we can check it out with that and probably diagnose what the fault is. If you look here, you'll see something else rather unusual. You see an awful lot of gold in this car. Now, this is actually genuine 24-karat gold. and it's there for a very good reason. This engine and the catalytic converters here all generate a colossal amount of heat, which you've got to get rid of. But of course, you can't get rid of it all, because some of it's going to come up through the bodywork, some of it's going to try and percolate through into the cockpit. So this gold foil, which is genuine 24-karat gold, is used as a heat reflector, and it's one of the most efficient heat reflectors known. So the fact that we've probably got about £2,500 worth of gold in the car is actually there for a very good purpose. It's normally used on, you know, the sort of space shuttle and that sort of thing to stop frying astronauts, and here we use it for, so we don't fry the paint and we don't fry the occupants of the cabin.
Despite the formidable engine, the state-of-the-art carbon chassis and their titanium toolkit, since the launch 3 years ago, McLaren have only sold 55 F1s. Their reputed business goal is to sell 300 in 12 years. Has the F1 crash landed? If it has, orders from an unexpected quarter have cushioned the blow. 5 racing teams saw the F1's potential for endurance sports car racing. McLaren had 3 months to modify and deliver before the season began. They scrambled to make the F1 an endurance racer, to be driven not by McLaren's own works team, but as a turnkey car, ready to race on delivery by independents. Amid cocktails and canapes, the GTR was launched. By the first race, 4 teams had their GTR, one sponsored by West Cigarettes and run by David Price, an experienced manager who started as a mechanic.
Done it since I left school, really. I did a Ford apprenticeship as a mechanic, and I've been a mechanic ever since. Just made a few quid at it, I suppose.
The 5th GTR to roll off the production line was ordered by Moody Fayed, the 26-year-old son of Saleh Fayed, the owner of Harrods.
As I approached McLaren myself, they just thought it was a little kid, you know, asking for some candy or something. I don't know what it was. They got to take me seriously when we paid the deposit for the car, which was £150,000. Then they took me seriously, but not before.
The late order means that Moody's car joins the championship well into the series for race 4, competing against teams who know their cars backwards. But McLaren have had these races to improve on the GTR's design and will build these improvements into his car. Moody's venture will cost well over £1 million, but his confidence has been buoyed because the GTR has won every race so far.
I mean, it is an expensive car, and it is a lot more than an F40 and a hell of a lot more than a Porsche. But I suppose all the time it's winning, then it doesn't matter how much it costs. Well, I'm not buying it, so it doesn't matter to me.
Moody Fayed is buying it, but he knows nothing about motorsport.
Most of that deal come through McLaren's. And McLaren said, could I come up and meet Moody that afternoon? And I went, we did a deal pretty much straight away. Moody's easy to do a deal with. The situation we've got now is that West sponsor one car, which is primarily a German car, if you like, and Harrods are sponsoring the other car, and we just try and gel them together into one operation. All the engineering is pulled, all the management's pulled.
Getting Moody's car built has been fraught. At the McLaren factory, tight deadlines have been compounded by delays. The gearbox has arrived the night before the car must be delivered.
We have to get the car out tomorrow evening. We have a team of mechanics coming back about 7:30 this evening to put that engine in and work throughout the night to get the engine in, so that when we come back in the morning, we will be able to run the engine and carry on and finish it and set up all the suspension ready for it to go tomorrow evening.
The gearbox is now in place, and the engine is ready to be installed. A seat fitting has been arranged for one of Moody's 2 drivers, Justin Bell, son of sports car racer Derek Bell.
Normally it's not 6 foot off the ground. You go to do it. going to have a few problems if I can't even get the wheel on. Yeah, it's not aligned. Are we on there? This is normally done in about 5 seconds.
The next morning at Silverstone, McLaren's engineers will test the GTR with David Price. If Price is satisfied that all systems are working, he will accept the car. Then there will be just 3 days before it must be trucked down to Spain for the first race. The West driver has driven his GTR in 3 endurance races. He will test the Harrods car first. Neither McLaren nor David Price know what he will find. GTR is on its first lap at Silverstone. This will be its only check for faults before David Price and Moody Fayed must decide whether to take delivery. At the shakedown, the drivers experience the car for the first time. How the car handles for them is reported back to the engineers who try to diagnose the problems. So far, the late arriving gearbox is faulty.
When he comes across to go into gear and come out and go across the gate into the next gear, it's very stiff and notchy. We've had a look at the control at the back of the gearbox, and that seems to be okay. So we're just looking at the front of the, where the gear lever goes into the control levers that operate the cables to the gear change at the back to see what's wrong there.
David Price's team understand the problems, and the man who's bought the car has to rely on their judgment.
I'm obviously quite nervous about the way that people in the motor racing trade see me as a newcomer and as inexperienced, and I admit that. I'm the first one to admit that. But I'm willing to learn and give it my best shot this year. It's really a learning year for me, and I like to pursue this as a career for the remaining days of my life, I hope. What's worrying me a lot is not just the respect from my family for having chosen this career. They don't think that motor racing can be a business. They see it as a good way of losing money. I mean, I could have done something else instead of motor racing, then that would have pleased them more, probably. So I do have to perform, but that's good because it pushes me. It pushes me harder and harder every day to hang in there. It's very stressing, but I'm hanging in.
The mechanics have also found a severe water leak. If they run the car without solving this problem, the engine could blow, destroying the car before they've even started. Will they now accept the GTR? As the mechanics search for the source of the leak, Moody's drivers Justin Bell and Andy Wallace wait.
Anyway, it was a highly embarrassing moment, so I've never done that before. My dad just came from a normal working class background, so he didn't have any money to help me on my way into racing. So what he did do was pay for the first lesson at the Jim Russell Racing School at Silverstone. Yeah. I was absolutely petrified, I remember. But it gave me the bug, and I really wanted to continue. I was lucky enough to be living in Oxford, and so all the colleges and universities needed people to wash the dishes and stuff in the evening, and I did a little bit of serving as well, and just earn enough money then to go and buy the next lesson.
The only way you make money out of racing is through sponsorship. There's no other income. There's no prize money as such. Unlike Formula One, where you can make a lot of money out of results. The only money you make in any formula under Formula One is purely from sponsorship.
The Fayeds help their son by buying the GTR and are the important link to Harrods, his sponsor.
Harrods is coming in with a relatively small amount. I have to say this is more as a favor to my family for having helped me out, for having purchased the car. It's also a very important thing that we haven't mentioned. So in that sense, they've helped me do about three, 4 races. That's the budget that I actually have right now. But I did manage to pull in an extra 100 to 150,000 pounds already. So we are moving in the right direction, but we do need a lot more money. It's not easy, it really isn't.
The pressure on the drivers is getting the chance to drive the car.
What our biggest problem is for Andy and I in this car at the moment is that by not having had that many laps in it, the car is to an extent still driving us. We're not completely in control of it. As in, I'm not saying we're out of control, but it isn't part of everything we do. You can't anticipate all the time what the car's going to do because it's never done it to you before. We're going to have to work like hell out there just to be on top of it, really.
The drivers will have to keep on top of things for a very long stretch. Their first race in Spain is for 4 hours, each driver taking an hour on and an hour off at flat-out speeds. To withstand this kind of sustained driving, the GTR is a very different animal to the F1 road car. What's more, the race authorities handicap each car depending on its size and power in order to keep the competition exciting. The GTR has had to restrict the engine's air intake.
The road car, in its road formats, runs an unrestricted engine. Once we take on board the restrictors, then we've had to work very carefully with BMW to work on the dyno with the engine in order to get the power to a maximum with those air restrictors. The car, as a racing car, is capable of running 200 miles an hour continuously for the 4 hours of the event. And this is something which you never see on the road car, so we've had to improve the sides which go with the speed. The braking is the main area to improve that, so it would last for the 4 hours and still give the performance at the end of the race.
But the leak problem must be solved before the beginning of the race. David Price and McLaren are still unable to find where the water is coming from.
George, have we got any copper slip or something?
We couldn't hold pressure in the water system. And when you're dealing with a vehicle with an engine in it that costs as much as this one does, I mean, you know, that can actually be a major problem. And in that we don't have a spare engine, you can't afford to take chances. So that's something that we're going to have to fix, and we won't know if we fixed it until we get to Jarama. I'm slightly surprised that it hasn't had a shakedown before us as a customer have received it. And we found a lot of things wrong, which you might have thought McLaren would have wanted to sort it out themselves before they delivered it to their customer. The guys here have now got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and put all the little bits right. I mean, it's akin to buying fish and chips. You want to take it away and put the right amount of salt and vinegar on it and maybe some ketchup so that it's to your liking. What we found here today is that some of the chips aren't quite cooked properly.
Moody has to accept the engine as it is. He won't earn without racing. They travel to the circuit, uncertain whether they will be able to race at all.
Have you got any? Oh, I think George is gone.
The water leak problem has not been cured. They've already missed 2 of 3 vital practices.
Yeah, we want to get the engine out.
We can do these other wallets off at the same time. We might as well do everything.
Yeah, that's just
all in one hit.
Straight going out the
Do the roads. You're not going to go out today. You can start it now. It's half past 2.
Not too bad then.
You won't be too bad tonight. You won't have to work till 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, I'll just go on to that later on.
Yeah, you can start the front end.
As the mechanics prepare for a long night's work, Moody watches the other cars get their final practice. Will his GTR ever get on the track? At last, engineer Ian Saunders has found the source of the leak, in the casting behind the engine. The casting can be replaced from a spare GTR brought to Spain by McLaren. Behind the scenes, it is being picked to its skeleton by all 5 teams racing the GTRs.
Bitch. And the casting in this.
See, I'm just wondering whether we can...
The Harrods team learned from the West team's practice.
Whether we just ought to shuttle the front down, like it is now.
They discuss whether greater downforce would give better stability in the corners. Should they widen the gurney, the 1-inch rim on the rear aerofoil?
Didn't do anything at all.
The West's GTR moves well into the corners. The weight shifts to the front, and they can feel the front grip the track. There is no oversteer.
I didn't experience any oversteer. I'm very sensitive to oversteer.
Yeah.
There was no oversteer.
No.
We're still quickest down the straight anyway.
We've got some bigger gurneys, haven't we?
Yeah, but you're getting close to illegal.
Right.
You're going to have to get on it in the morning because, you know, you're going to be at the end of the pit lane at about 7 o'clock waiting for it to open so we can get out first.
Dead right. Yeah. That'll be me.
As you haven't driven it yet, you've got to go and qualify on one set of tyres in about 2 laps.
Yeah, that's okay. I've done it before. It's not a problem.
He knows he's got to go out tomorrow morning on one new set of tyres in a car he's not driven yet and qualify it. And he's got about 4 laps to do that in, really.
It's on you now. Yeah. When it's necessary. See if I had a point on it.
Well, I'll see how it feels, and if it's okay, I'll
Do it.
give it one.
We had the engine out, redid the front mountings for the water leak, basically found the water leak. It took a while, it took till about 5 in the morning. But, new setup for qualifying as well. We're all ready to go. Just hope the problem's cured. We'll know within the next 5 minutes.
Andy Wallace has finally got the chance to experience the GTR. He must qualify with a fast time. His position on the grid depends on it. These are rolling start races. At the green light, all the cars go at once. Harrods are against 37 other cars. If they start at the back, they'll never get to the front during the race. While the mechanics refuel and check the systems, Justin Bell gets into the driver's seat for the first time. John Piper times the laps. Every point of a second is crucial. Even being half a second behind the front car adds up to a full lap by the end of a 4-hour race. The difference between first place and last. The end of qualifying. Harrods have secured 9th place on the grid. This is the first chance to talk about the setup with real experience behind the wheel. But the car still isn't right.
The actual handling problem, or what the symptoms are, with a race car, as a driver, you go by what you feel through the seat of your pants and what you feel through your arms, through the steering. And that the communication you get from there is how you drive the car. Normally you would arrive at a corner, you brake as late as you can, you turn into the corner, and as you turn in to the corner, the weight is transferred from the rear of the car to the front. And it lands on the front, it makes the front heavy, it makes the steering heavy, and you can feel grip. And with that grip, you drive through the corner. What we're not getting now is we're not getting that feeling that the weight is transferring to the front of the car. So it's very difficult then to feel when you've got grip and when you haven't got grip. So we don't have the grip, we know that, but we don't know why. And we don't know why the steering is so light. When something like this happens and we're not fast, you have a sense that, okay, there's probably something wrong with the car. But you feel almost more responsible than anybody else in a team because you are the one in the car. You are the one that went round 4 seconds too slow. Now, for whatever reason, it's quite possible we find, oh, it's the car. But it's still you driving the car. And for the same reason that when somebody gets pole position, they all grab hold of the driver and say, yeah, great, good job. It's also very bad for us when we don't do that, when we go slowly. So we desperately need to find out what's wrong and go out there and prove, okay, all of us can do the job.
Justin looks for Andy to compare notes.
Are you turning? Yeah. You can't even go around the corner.
No, it just stops.
I mean, Citroen's quicker than it around our road car.
Exactly.
You turn in and you go, remember, it was like the same feeling, like a boat. I mean, it's not a diving understeer.
No, there's no weight transfer.
There's no weight transfer in the car. Like, there's no weight transfer, no pitch at all. You go into the corner and you go, I can't even get on the power. So when you do, the transition from front to rear end. I mean, you're just watching the seconds going tick, 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 tick away, aren't you? I mean, I half spun it coming.
Yeah, me too. You can't get enough on.
I can't get enough. Oh,
the rack's too slow. The steering's too light.
Yeah, I tell you, we're losing acres of time.
Yeah, half a second a corner.
Half a second a corner. There's nothing that makes sense that we can do. I mean, we're going to sit in that bus after this. I'm trying to think ahead.
Yeah.
Sit in that bus, and we're going to come up with theories, but we've made a big change and they made fuck all difference.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're just looking pathetic in the tight corners still.
Oh, we're not even that good.
Yeah, that's true.
We're really bad. What's the next word then?
Yeah.
Crap, isn't it?
Yeah. It's as good as you're going to get.
Actually somewhere in the range. I'm sure we're right there. But yeah, it's just so incredibly light. And I distinctly remember you saying that, no, it's really heavy when you put the stiff springs and bar on. Well, we have them on and it's not.
The team discuss how to give the front of the car more grip in the fast corners. Harder rubbers on the suspension for better traction means a loss of speed out of the fast corners onto the straight.
Full up with quick corners onto the straight up the hill. And
It wasn't so. You might just need to get it onto a pack or something.
falling hours.
Don't keep
So
going.
we lost
You've got a very
as
soft
a
rubber
total,
on it,
but,
or even go to a harder
something to
rubber.
look into maybe.
Although competitors in an expensive game, the West drivers try to help.
Green rubbers in it, yeah.
We could go back to the
So we have to
75
play
round
more
one,
time,
unfortunately. We haven't got it here.
No, no more time yet.
Yeah, the 5 mil longer and harder.
All right, Graham, you're in, mate.
Yeah.
What's your
Really?
Well, I mean, I can see no reason why we can't use the 460 tomorrow.
unscrubbed?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Well, that saves a bit of time if you don't have to scrub sort of 3 sets of tyres in the morning.
I mean, we haven't blistered any tyres here.
Tyre blisters, you'll have to put up with it. won't you?
We're more concerned on blisters on the inside shoulder, sure.
You know, if you blister a set in the first stint, then you won't have to do it in the next one.
We'll be there. We're always late. Our only option is to take the setup up from the car that's run and put it. I mean, that's one of the advantages of running 2 cars. That there's always going to be the chance that one of them will be working, and you can just copy the setup. So that's what we'll do, and that's Moody's advantage, if you like, in that respect. You can just stick it straight on, and it should just work straight out of the box. You're not going to be successful. Just the minute you set up, it just takes a bit of a while.
After another late night, the mechanics arrive at 7 a.m.
Morning, campers.
The entire team have spent the night worrying about today, but no one so much as Moody.
I went back to the hotel and sat at the bar, had a few shots, and tried to get some sleep, and I honestly couldn't sleep until about 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm very nervous because you saw what happened yesterday and the day before. I took a couple of headache tablets this morning because I have a terrible headache. I don't know if it's from the stress or whatever, and then I've got butterflies and a lot of other feelings going through me right now.
8 minutes to warm up. Andy is the first one in the driver's seat. The Porsches next door pull off to queue down the pit lane. Harrods have taken front shock absorbers from the spare McLaren GTR. They're not fitting properly and are rubbing against the inside bodywork. The wheels come back off. 3 minutes to warm up. The warm-up gets underway without them. Five minutes into the warm-up, and at last Andy Wallace can go. The end of warm-up.
Obviously we've gone a lot quicker than we've done so far, and what's particularly encouraging is that we've done the fourth fastest time this morning. There's a few sort of mitigating factors against that. We weren't on full tanks, and probably everybody else is, but we're over half full, and we're on old tyres, so that's reasonably. And what's also most encouraging really is that we've done a quick time right at the end there, so I'm happier than I was this time yesterday.
So, yeah. Now we just get it.
Yeah. Fix the brakes because they're no good, and the high speed.
So we're not going to be going backwards against the 1964 911.
No, the only thing is tyre wear is a bit of a worry because it starts to slide around. I mean that last time, the car was sliding everywhere. It was still the fastest time, but it was clear. I'm just relieved. But we found what it is. I mean, if you left the circuit not knowing what it was...
Now we've got it.
Yeah. Well, this morning, you see the difference is this. Happy face. Because at last, it seems like we found what the problem was. And there was obviously a problem with the front shock absorbers. And the car's really transformed. You have all the grip at the front that we didn't have yesterday on all the low-speed corners. We were out on oldish tyres and quite a high fuel load. Even so, we went 2 seconds faster than we went in qualifying, so that's incredible. Now all we've got to do is fix a high-speed imbalance. We're a bit too much understeer high speed, and we've got a soggy brake pedal. We can fix those very quickly before the race. But the main thing is that we found why it wasn't gripping at the front, so I'm really happy. And they obviously did a very good job on the car.
10 minutes before the start of the race.
I don't know how you keep those in. I can't get them deep enough into my ears.
You can't?
No.
Maybe your ears are too small.
No one's ever said that before.
No. So they're big on the outside and small on the inside.
Andy will drive the first and third hour, just in the second and final. Moody's parents arrived from London. They've been helicoptered from Madrid airport by McLaren.
But we've had a really, really hard time. Emotions, Jesus, up and down.
He said to me on Friday, I won't be able to sleep or eat all weekend. I said, really, I'm the one doing the driving, you know? Usually, what him?
You see the best time.
Oh, it's I mean, we've all been.
Oh, the best day is
This is a big thing today.
The guys are fantastic, the mechanics, I mean, are unity.
The crowds, have you seen the crowds?
The cars get the green light and 4 hours of concentration begins.
Basically shit.
Today it's fine.
Harrods move up from 9th to 6th place. Hour 2 approaches. Tyres and driver are changed.
Front tyres a hard time. So after about 15-20 laps, you really had to struggle to get the car into the corners, but otherwise everything else is working fine.
The understeer shows on the front right tyre. Andy can't feel the front of the car accepting the weight and gripping the track. He has to decelerate to be sure of control. He wants to tear the inch-wide gurney off the rear wing. John Piper agrees to it, and as soon as Justin pulls in for a driver change, they'll saw it off.
Decided, well, why don't we just get the air saw and cut it off?
Andy holds off the Ferrari chasing their tail. Harrods keep hold of 3rd place.
Yeah, you gave Thomas a good lesson there, man.
I did, didn't I?
You sure did, I saw that.
He was gone. 3 laps, he was hit 3.
Delante da McLaren vicino, pensa, he thinks he's better than Justin.
The final stint, and after a driver change, Justin is losing 0.3 seconds a lap. Harrods can't prevent the Ferrari from taking 3rd position.
Well done, huh?
In practically blind conditions, the team have pulled the car from a carcass in the pits to 4th place, beating back 33 relative veterans. After a weekend of holding their breath, the relief is immense.
My God, if you would have seen the car and stuff.
Have a beer on the street. Yeah, I think 3 or 4
Considering we had to take the engine out of the car and back in, and then all the problems, it was nothing.
The time, and you start working hard.
Ecco, arriva la piccolina.
And hacking the gurney off made a difference.
Oh yeah, we're going to leave that hacked one on forever, I think. It's like, we can give you a drawing of that for a small price. Yeah, I think a large one.
It's a tire, no problem. Not bad, is it? It's tires?
It's wonderful.
The car wasn't finished, so we ended up having to build it here. I mean, we've done in 2 days what the guys would probably spend a week doing properly back at the factory.
Without swearing, I feel really good. Yeah, I feel really good. I shall sleep well tonight. I need it.
I'm so elated. And that was with shag brakes as well.
Shag brakes and tires.
So we did it in the end.
If you think about Friday. Think about Friday where we were, I mean.
We did it right.
If the car had been better when we got it, we could have had a good 2-3 there. I'm quite confident of that. Perhaps we wouldn't have won it, but it's not bad for a first race.
More fast cars follow in just a moment with a profile of Ferrari.